will All right, so thank you so much for being here. And I hope that I get to interact with some of you if you're still here at the end of this hour. But I'm honored that you believe that my answers to your questions are worth your time. So that's pretty cool. And there's a couple of things to keep in mind as we get started is, first of all, my answers are not always the right answers. My answers are based on my personal experience, and my experience shapes my point of view. And what works for me may not work for you. And I think that there's a danger in crowdsourcing and getting all these kind of ideas. And then it's hard to find that needle in a haystack. What is going to work for you? So I hope that you can develop that filter that you need so that you can take away what works for you and throw it away. You know, I think sometimes we should on ourselves far too much. So I stopped shoulding on myself quite a while ago, and it really did free me up. So I empower you all to stop shoulding on yourself. Okay, so here's what I have planned for today. I'll begin reading questions. There's a number of questions that came in. I've got my list right here, and I have answers to them, and I'm not going to go deep into each one of those answers because I'm thinking that perhaps some of you here in this meeting today might have some answers as well. So just to keep things moving forward, when I read a question and if you can think of an answer that has worked for you, please enter it in the chat, and I will try and keep an eye on the chat and visit that as we move forward. But I'm hoping that you will also feel free to come up with other questions as we move forward. I want to have a little bit of time at the end to answer questions for you that are here live. And the reason why I think it's so important for us to answer each other's questions is if you have joined a Composium before, you have heard this quote: the smartest person in the room is the room. So again, I'm not claiming to be the smartest person. I'm just claiming to share what I have learned through trial and error. And let's see, at 11:55, I plan to stop, and that's when I'm going to do a drawing for a free year of the Full Scoop on Chords. And even if you are subscribed, you still get to enter, okay? So I'm going to try something kind of bizarre on how to do a drawing. I was trying to think, how can I do this in a Zoom meeting? But I'm hoping that it will work. And welcome to all of you. Again, I know that some of you may just need some companionship. I heard that from someone. Andrea was saying it's been a rough week. Andrea is our graphic designer at lilavis.com. And so if you are just looking for companionship, here we go, here we are. And I look forward to meeting you all through your questions. Okay, so first of all, and what I did is I didn't know exactly where the questions were stemming from sometimes, because I did email different people within my mailing list, people who have subscribed to the Full Scoop on Chords, or people who have subscribed to how to play piano in a band, and then just people who have subscribed to my webinars before. So the first question talks about playing church music accompaniment and using a melody line and chords, chord symbols above. And her goal, I think, when she was talking about subscribing to the Full Scoop on Chords, was to get better at them. And she's just saying it's kind of hard. And so here's my response to things like that. First of all, courses don't offer accountability like a human being does. And that's why our students come for piano lessons, because we need that accountability. And I think courses are strong, they deliver information, but you need to act on it too. And so if you are in one of my courses right now, I encourage you to pause the video and try it yourself at the piano as much as possible. And then I also think it's important, when we see a chord symbol, to keep it basic at first. When you see a C chord, you're thinking, oh, I don't know what's in a C chord. Play a C in the left hand. That works. That single bass note is going to get you a long ways, and then you can add on to it. And then maybe you can do a triad or a power chord. You want to have a plan. I think when we improvise, people think when we improvise that we have it all. We're just going to think of it at the top of our head, but that is not true. I usually have a plan when I'm going to improvise, and I know some patterns that I'm going to be using. And then always look for the letter name first instead of worrying about, oh, that 7 or the add 2. I don't know what that is. Just look for that pitch name, first of all. That's the most important piece of information from a chord symbol. And then I practice a lot with Spotify. I'll get my Spotify account going and get my chord chart or whatever and play along and chord change with them. And so that's how I get a groove. A lot of times I don't try and play the melody as well as the chords. I just play the chords. And I would say analyze every piece of sheet music that you can. Start looking for chords and start labeling them in your music. I think that's just going to make you a stronger chord reader overall, but it doesn't come overnight. It didn't come overnight for me. So I encourage you to practice, practice, practice. If you are struggling with chords and how to play chords along with a melody, leave the melody out first. Get the left hand going the way you want it, then add the melody back in. All right, so that was from L. Johnson. Now, Rebecca has another question. I think she's a Full Scoop on Chords member. And if you're wondering, what is the Full Scoop on Chords? It is a course that I created. So yes, I do create courses and I am very available during that course. If you ever have a question, I'm right there, but I am not there personally showing you and teaching you. It's just all video. So there is a little bit of a lack of accountability on your end, but I'm using it with my students. And then I use that as a supplement to my instruction. So Rebecca was asking, do you go over sustained chords in one of the group units? So sustained probably means like a C sus4 or a C2. And that is a good question. I don't cover that in the Full Scoop on Chords yet, but that is the beauty of having a course. And I love people who give me suggestions like, oh, okay, well, that is not a bad idea. I think I will add that in. That also is covered in how to play piano in a band. Now, that is another course that I have that I wrote with my good friend, Drew Collins, who is a worship leader. He's a band leader. And I did not know how to play in a band. And now I do, thanks to years and years of trial and error, and also some good coaching from Drew and from some other worship leaders. And so I know that that course has been valuable to many people who were like me, classically trained, and then didn't know what to do when a chord chart came. That's my story. I got a master's degree and then someone handed me a chord chart, and man, I could play Bach, but I couldn't play a chord chart. So it was quite earth-shattering to me. So, yes, we see other people. I know. And don't you just feel like, okay, what did I do? I spent all this time. If you happen to listen to my latest podcast episode, so we were talking about, what makes a real musician. And she was a classically trained cellist, and someone accused her of not being a real musician because she couldn't improvise. So my goal, I teach out of reaction to how I've been taught. I want well-rounded musicians who can play over, crossover. And I think perhaps that's why you're here, because you believe in that philosophy as well. So, okay. And then next question, would you be doing a sheet of 5-finger scales for minor keys like pages 5 and 6 in the 5-finger patterns chord chart handout? So what is she talking about? I just added a new module to the Full Scoop on Chords, which is all about 5-finger patterns. And I call it the major scoop, because I feel like if your students know finger pattern, or if you know the major 5-finger pattern of C major of any of built on any key, you can now then find the C minor 5-finger pattern. You can find the C major triad. You can find the C minor triad. You can find the diminished triad. And you can also find the augmented. They're all built around that knowledge of one thing. And I feel like when we give our students so much information, okay, what's the major? What's the minor? What's the diminished? That can be overwhelming. But if they know their major and then you show them how to find the minor and the diminished and all that, that's going to stick with them much longer than just giving them a piece of information like, okay, a minor is a minor third and then a major third on top. Now I go into detail in that course, but I don't do that when they first learn 5-finger patterns. I just want them to hear it, to feel it. Then we'll start diving into, hey, what makes that major versus not major? So Rebecca, I think you just joined. I'm sorry, I was just answering your question. So you asked about, am I going to add sus chords to the Full Scoop on Chords? And I like that idea. It's already part of how to play piano in a band, but I love suggestions and I'm always open to adding more. And then I like the idea of adding minor sheets, and I'm open to that. But like I said, I think major is probably one of the key factors in knowing everything else. Major 5-finger patterns. They fit nicely under the hand. You can find a triad, and then you can find everything you need to know about a triad from that major triad, or the 4 qualities of triads from that major triad. So, okay, I'm going to keep going. And yes, if you do ever have any questions, please leave them in the chat, and I promise I will look at them. I just want to get through as many questions as I can. Someone asked, do I have a scope and sequence with which you map out lessons and how to teach music concepts? And that is a very good question. And I think everyone should do that sometime in their life. Ooh, I even said should. Now, do I always follow my scope and sequence? Absolutely not. Now, when I was working at University of Denver, I really had to, because I had graduate students following my lead. And I think you really do need something in your head on how you're going to get a student from A to B. So I think that is an important practice. And if you haven't done so already, try it with at least one concept. Basically my full scoop on chords is a scope and sequence on how I teach chords, from where I start and where do I end. So I feel like any method book is a scope and sequence. You are borrowing somebody else's scope and sequence. And especially in private lessons, maybe that's all you need. But in a group lesson setting, I think you have to think a little bit more about how you're going to introduce things and when you're going to introduce things. Now, my main goal is to get students playing. And I am a talking head today. I am not having you play. And this is kind of against a lot of my rules when I do online lessons. I want you to play, play, play. Ooh, try this, try this. And so I may skip over some concepts to get them playing, but I will go back. And I think the key to being a well-paced music teacher is don't dive into the details right away. Get them playing first, get them wondering, why is this way? Or why do I have to learn that? And then that's when you can answer some of those questions. So it's maybe a little bit opposite of my pedagogy years. But I think, especially if we have online students, we got to get them playing. If we're talking, if we're explaining everything right away, we're going to lose them. So I think playing is the key. And what I like to do is I like students to hear it first. And that's what's fun about online lessons is I'll say, okay, which C am I playing? And, pretty soon, oh, okay, well, that's middle C. Well, are you sure it's not cow C? Yep, it's middle C. So just fun little things like that can get their ears going before I even show a picture. And then, can you play it? Can you sing it? Can you write it? Having those steps in your mind about how you're going to introduce every concept will be good. I went to my piano teacher planning kit. So I think if you are interested in how I approach lessons and a scope and sequence, you'll see a sample in there in my piano teacher planning kit, which, by the way, I will have links to everything that I talk about today. I am not taking official notes or whatever. So, if you're interested in something, write it down, and then you'll find it in the follow-up email. But what I liked when I revisited that, I found this scope and here's something to think about when you're planning each lesson, not even, the big picture. Yes, the big picture, but even the small lesson that's coming up next, not the small lesson, the small concept that you might introduce in the lesson that's coming up next. And that is, what is the concept to teach? How will I teach it? And then why is this concept important? And that is from Norman Ing. I just thought that's his 1-sentence lesson plan. And I think that is golden. If you have that in your mind, what is the concept? How am I going to teach it? And why is this important? And a lot of times I like to ask my students, so why do you think that's important to know this? And then that gets them thinking. All right, so that one took a little bit longer to answer. Next question, I did a few lessons, which I think this is from the How to Play Piano in a Band, but they get a little lost, and I'm thinking they're talking about the band course. And when you are subscribed to that band course, I feel like the meat and potatoes of basically any of my courses are the videos. So go to the videos. Follow along, then play what you can. I add a lot of extras, and that's for people who are looking for supplement type things. But I encourage you to head to the videos, play along, go to the links right below that are important. All of the other stuff is supplementary. So kind of help yourself by limiting that information. I know, be on information overload. So my apologies for people who feel overwhelmed. I feel like I want to give you everything, and then sometimes I kind of err on the other side. Okay, then I'm wondering, if, and I may just ask you at the end, are you ever interested, excuse me, I need a drink of water, by the way, hot water. Anybody else drink hot water? Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. If you ever are interested in meeting with me about the band course or the Full Scoop on Chords, I'm happy to do something like that too, if I can have people jump on a call with me just to answer specific questions. This is more of a general Q&A today. So let me know if you're interested in that. Okay, and then here's another question. I'd like to know how to incorporate this into group lessons and then follow up during summer camp. So I'm thinking they're talking about the Full Scoop on Chords, but last summer, I held a How to Play Piano in a Band summer camp. And it was a lot of fun, and I took great notes, and now I'm going to go through all of those notes and share those with you so that if you are interested in doing something like that this summer, you could use that in your studio. And I use information from both the Full Scoop on Chords and How to Play Piano in a Band in private lessons and in group lessons. So what I did is I had 5 siblings. Well, it was a group of 5 students, and they were all friends, and some of them were siblings. There was a pair of 2 and a pair of 3, and they were all different ages, and they all knew This Is Amazing Grace, which is a worship song. So that's the one we chose. You don't have to choose that one, but just find one that everyone likes. And then from there, I developed a camp. I knew what I wanted them to do by the end, and that was to be able to play along, to chord along and sing. Yes, they even sang because we had kazoos. And then I had a drummer drumming. So they took turns drumming, and they even played a little riff da, 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 that they learned by ear, a couple of different things. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I would encourage you to do for your summer camps if you choose to do a summer camp. So what does that mean? That does not mean sleeping bags on the front lawn. All it means is that you gather a group of students and you set up times for them to meet 2 to 5 times, 2 to 6 times, whatever you'd like within the summer. I would recommend 2 hours at a time. I've tried an hour, that goes really fast. An hour and a half is good. 2 hours is even nicer. And then basically I walk students through from beginning to end. And by the end, I want them to be able to do something. And so that's your takeaway. So whatever you plan for this summer, make sure you know what's the end. Start at the end before you start planning at the beginning. And I think that can help you with your scope and sequence in some ways. Where am I starting and how am I going to get to where I want to go? Let's see. And yeah, so we did a mix of theory games. We did off-bench things and we played. I had snacks. We listened to some, what's inside the piano. I did some various things. So I'll be sharing that. In fact, I have a summer camp headquarters that I will release on my site again, where you can find all kinds of summer camp curriculums by Dorla. Ooh, Heather Nanny is updating our Let's Drum This, our piano bucket drumming for piano teachers course. And she created a camp to go with that course as well. So if you have subscribed to that already, or if you have that, stay tuned. We'll let you know how you can get access to an updated copy of that. But if you don't have it, that's a great one. I rely on bucket drumming every summer. It's a fun thing to do. Okay, let's see. Specific ways to use how to play piano in a band can be adapted for musical. Okay, yes. So Marissa, I think she's here. Marissa, you're always into musical theater. I love that. And so how to play piano in a band be translated over to something from musical theater? I think what I was just saying is take a song that everybody knows. Maybe it's a Hamilton song, and have a lot of fun with that song. Dig into it. And then also have them play it somehow. Maybe it's just a very basic playthrough. Maybe it's just the chords. And like a lot of music theater pieces, it can be really complicated. And so I think this is a great chance to teach the art of omission. No one ever taught me that skill. No one ever said, well, Leela, don't play that note. That's, is that really that important? I was told get every note on the page. And I have noticed as I sight read, I am skipping things left and right. Like, okay, well, that one doesn't matter. I got to get here. It counts that you're on beat with some note, rather than offbeat with the right note. I don't know if you've heard that before, but yes, you definitely want to be on the beat is the most important thing. And then from there, try and get what you can. And so I think, if you're going to have students reading from a music theater score, oh my gosh, that's a huge lesson right there. What can you skip? What can you, what's not important? What's not essential? So I don't know if that's answering your question, but I can see, Marissa, that you could take a musical theater piece like I took a worship song and kind of do the same thing. So, okay, yes, and I will, again, the bucket drumming is coming, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for being interested in that. Okay, so let's see. Starting an, somebody wants to know, starting an online store, the pros versus the cons, the hardest part, from Jill. Okay, so yes, okay, Marissa, you're welcome. This is a good question because I ask myself that a lot. What was I thinking? And I remember Wendy Stevens told me a long time ago, she said, when I started blogging, she said, Leela, you should start a store that's going to motivate you to create content. And I'm like, I don't know. So then finally I did. And then guess what? Then it's the marketing. It's getting people talked into what you have. It's, trying to explain yourself clearly. Okay. So the very hardest thing is selling it. That's why I'm doing this. To be honest, okay, this is free, but I have just borrowed your time, right? So I am talking about my products. So I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm hoping that some of you will jump on some of the things that I created because I teach less so I can do this. Now, I think perhaps most of you teach a lot more students than I do and probably make even more money than I do. But I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it because I love it. And I think, I've come to that part in my life where I can do that. I have the luxury of being married to a man who is gainfully employed. And I've got a church job. So I have several streams of income. So when you're ready to branch out and have several streams of income and feel like you're divided 5 different ways, I'd say go for it, but it's not an easy thing. Let me see. The second part is preparing the final product. Oh my goodness, you guys, you wouldn't believe how much editing goes into that. And then guess what? There's still a mistake. And any of you who have done the Composium and have taken your piece, notated it, created a cover for it, created a video for it, put a QR code on it, you know how much work that is. It's not an easy thing to create a product. And then what's interesting is that, the most we can get for a piece of single sheet music is under $4, far less than a cup of gourmet coffee. So it's a little bit frustrating, but what I must say is that it does feed my soul. I love doing it. And so that's why I'm here with you all, because I love to hear where you're at in your teaching and what kind of ideas that you might like. And if any of you have an idea that you think, what, I think people could benefit from this, please let me know, because I have different contributors in my store. Andrea West is here, and she does all the beautiful graphics that you can buy for your recital programs and social media. So if you have an idea, please pitch it to me. I'd love to hear it. Okay. And then somebody asked, oh, do I have an idea for a goodbye song for a student? Now, I don't necessarily have a goodbye song. I do give them each a music box, which I just, every senior who sticks with me through the senior year, which I don't know if any of you have that, but doesn't that just make you feel so good when, man, they've lasted that long? That's a pretty incredible thing, because high school students can get distracted by so many things. So good on you if you've got seniors. But I give them a music box that has a nice little, I don't know, sometimes it has Fur Elise. It just kind of depends on which one I can find, Moonlight Sonata. But if I was thinking about a goodbye song, maybe write your own. Maybe there's something that you can have in your studio that you always play for your student or sing or something. And then what I like to do is, think back, what tools are you giving them? Do you know, are you equipping them with every tool that you can think of? Like, I want my students to know that I play from my iPad, from Fourscore, and I often use a Bluetooth pedal. Even if they've never used that in lessons, I just want to make sure that they know about it so they're not surprised. I think one of the things I don't want my students to do is go out into the world and say, Miss Lila, you never told me about that. And so by the time we have a senior, I think, making sure that you feel they are equipped to go out in the world and be prepared for what might happen could be something that is more important even than a goodbye song. But you could also invite your students to compose one. And then I don't know if any of you know that tune, Time to Say Goodbye. It's so pretty. So maybe that's a nice one as well. You could learn it. I have a beautiful arrangement by Lori Line of that one. Or maybe even write a blues. Do a farewell blues. And I've done that before. I've got a curriculum, how to be cool and play the blues, help your student write, senior blues. I got the senior blues, or I'm, sad to be leaving piano lessons, something like that. So I will plug some of those into the email that I send out to you as well. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. It's an interesting parting. Our adult students we can have permanently, but suddenly seniors, man, once that 12th grade comes, that might be the end. But I've had some come back too, and maybe you have as well. Okay, so what are your favorite resources, curriculums to use with adult students? We were just talking about adults, and any favorite ways to market your ideal adult student? Good question. So first of all, I have used several method books and some, but it all depends on the adult, because let's be honest, they come with a little bit of baggage. They come with an agenda. They also come with this expectation that they're going to sound just like that CD that they were just listening to, or what's on Spotify. And so I feel like I craft my lessons around the adult's agenda. And so a method book may get them where they need to go. I've had one gentleman love Piano Pronto mixed with Piano Maestro. He is my Piano Maestro star student every week, and that is how he learned to read music. It's interesting because he does well in Piano Maestro. Now, to get him to play at the piano with a steady beat and flow is almost impossible. I can play with him as a duet, but the processing is just slow for him. So I noticed that my expectations with my adult students are different. My standards are different. I want them happy with what they're doing. And it has little to do with my happiness on how they're sounding. Now, that is really not very nice of me, but it can be a little humbling to hear that, they were pretty happy with their progress. I'm like, okay, but if they keep coming back, it means that they are learning and they're enjoying themselves. And I just, I guess we all need to put ourselves in a place of learning something from scratch, and how would we feel? And I think that's the most important thing. So I'm going to link a podcast that I did with Christina Whitlock. She teaches a lot of adult students, and we did a podcast episode about that. And I think, we touch a lot on a lot of this topic. So I'll make sure to add that, because that's a big topic right there with that question. And marketing students, I might try something. We have a neighborhood newsletter. I might market to my parents, first of all, see if any of them want to come instead of their students, just for something different for the summer. I might do some kind of, wine and cheese, play piano. I don't know. How can they drink wine and learn at the same time? I don't know, but maybe it's the fourth time they come, then we celebrate with a wine and cheese event. But again, it would be me having to figure out, what do I want them to do by the end? And most likely it would be to chord along with a favorite song. So I'm playing around with an idea like that. So that could get adults into your neck of the woods. And I also think that, adults are the best referrals, so if you have an adult student and you say, hey, I'm interested in more adult students, share the word, and that could help as well. So I'm sure some of you may have other suggestions too. So please leave them in there. Let's see. The other thing is that I noticed that some adults have assorted skills, but are missing the connection between them. Have you noticed that? Like, I just remember my student, she was playing quite sophisticated music and it had one sharp in front. And then finally we broke it down like, okay, let's play a G major scale. And why does it need? Oh, we need half steps between 3 and 4. And then we went back to her piece and I said, okay, well, see that sharp sign right in the front there? So that's called a key signature. And that's telling you in the key that you are playing in the key of G. And she had this most amazing light bulb moment. Like she had never put 2 and 2 together. And I think that's what I find a lot in adults who have had lessons in the past is they were told to play, but they weren't given the reasons why things are the way they are. And adults love to be inspired by the why and how things are put together. So I think, that can be very satisfying to them and then more to you too, even if they don't play the way you'd like, what we'd like to do them to sound. But anyway, okay, hopefully that's enough on that topic. Let's see. How do I teach my students to make a song, private and group lessons? Okay. I like this question. Number one, I'm just going to give you a plug. If you want to help your students compose, I know Mandy asked this question, so she already attended the Composium. This is the course for you to not only hone your composing skills, but also help your students compose. But if you wanted to start really, really basic, I did this years and years ago, and I think I might do it again this summer. I called it an invention camp, but everyone learned Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star as written. They played the melody and they played simple chords along with it. We learned the chords. And then what I had them do is asked them to make up new lyrics to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And then that triggered some new rhythms and then some new left-hand patterns. And pretty soon this whole piece it transformed to something completely different from Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But I think the important thing behind this is giving composers or improvisers or creators a template to start with. And then there's well, I don't know what to do. Well, okay, so learn Twinkle, Twinkle. Now, what can you add? What can you change? What do you want your song to be about? I think one was all about, she had a horse named Peanut Butter. So that's what she wrote her piece about. And so it didn't sound anything like Twinkle, Twinkle by the end. So it was a lot of fun. And then I didn't mess too much with the harmony, because if kids don't know too much about harmony, that can be a little hard. But if they do know a little bit more about harmony, then they can change up the harmony as well. So that's what I would suggest doing. Mix up the melody notes. It really is a fun way to start. And I liked the word invention camp because, they were inventing something new from something that they already knew. All right. How do you teach chords and circles of fifths to young children around 6 to 8? Now, I don't, as you can tell, I've got a circle on my wall there. People have asked, where did I get that? I don't know, but I'm so glad I have it because I point to it all the time. If I could make that big of one for all of you, I would definitely do it, but I can't. But what I have my students do is when they're playing the 5-finger patterns, they'll start with a C 5-finger pattern. And I do this little song, Mommy made me eat my M&Ms, yum, yum. It's kind of silly, but it just gives them a nice little message to sing along with. And then their right-hand pinky is their coach. So after they play a C major 5-finger pattern, then let me just change my camera because I do have a camera up here so you can see my hands. So I play the C. Yum, yum. Now my right-hand pinky informs me where to go next. And now I'm going to play. And then I go to D. And then what's going to happen? Ooh, did that sound right? No, it didn't. Okay, so how can you fix it? And if they can't fix it, I'll have them play along with me. Ooh, which one didn't match? Okay, number 3. Oh, let's see, it's a black key. And I'll give them information as much as possible. And they will come to the conclusion, ooh, this needs a black key. I don't even talk about what it's called right away. And then we're up to A and we keep going. And that's how I'll have them go all the way around the circle. I won't even call it the circle of keys, but they're already learning that relationship. But now, of course, they're going to run out of piano. So then I say, do you notice how you're going to run out of piano? So let's go to C and then up to G, then down to D, up to A. So they travel all the way around the circle using 5-finger patterns, and they get to know them all I have a little iReal Pro chart that I have them play along with. And then we always talk about, oh, where'd you crash and burn? You know, because I usually crash and burn right around B major because that gets hard. But that's how I introduce the circle. I probably don't even say the circle of keys right away, but eventually I start pointing to that thing on the wall. Hey, see what you just did? You went to C to G. And then perhaps you've seen me make connections with tetrachords and major scales. I did a whole blog on that. Maybe I will add that in. I do have a blog post about this too, Mandy, about the circle of fifths. So that's how I approach it at first. I am not done with, I've got something cool that I want to do with the circle of keys that I will share at some point. So stay tuned on that. Okay. So moving right along, how to effectively talk through improvisation in lessons. Ooh, such a good question. And I can say this honestly, that I come to this by Bradley Sowash, who we co-founded 88 Creative Keys. We had workshops and webinars for 6 years. So a lot of what he's told or what he shares has trickled down into my own teaching. And the very first thing I'll say is that talk less and play more. So if you are going to tell someone to improvise, you don't want to keep talking and talking, just get them going. And then provide a rhythm from words. You know, like I'll say, okay, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? And they'll say blueberry pancakes. And they'll say blueberry pancakes. And then I'll say blueberry pancakes, blueberry pancakes. All right, well, now can you play that rhythm just on C, just with your thumb in a C major 5-finger pattern? Blueberry pancakes. Nice, okay. Would you like more than one note? Why, certainly. Okay, how about can you try it on C and D? And they'll probably do something like that. Ooh, would you like more than one? Or more than two? How about three? And there they are already improvising. But notice I'm just giving them what I was going to say is Bradley talks about giving them a short leash, and then that leash gets longer and longer and longer. And then pretty soon, you know what? Oh, Miss Leela, I changed the rhythm. Like, I don't care. That's great, you know. But what you're doing is you're giving them constraints. There's much more. There's a safety net with constraints. If you give someone too much freedom, it gets to be overwhelming immediately. So I think the key is when you introduce improvisation, maybe don't even introduce it. Okay, now we're going to improvise. Don't even say that. Like, okay, so can you copy me? Sure. Can you make up something? Ooh, now I'm going to copy you. You know, just doing those little things, they don't even know that they're getting creative right away. When you slip it in that way, then it becomes something that's natural to them. It's organic. It's not this, now we will. So that's how I tend to add improvisation into my lessons. And then especially with repertoire, I'll say, okay, what could you add to this piece? You know, maybe can you make, you know, when if I skips, can you add in notes in between? Something like that. And I'll give them lots of options. I think that's the other thing. If they don't know what to do and they say, I don't know, then you give them choices. Oh, you could try this or you could try this. Which one would you like to do? Again, it's them making the choice. They're the ultimate creator, but you're giving them options. And especially when they're just starting, I think, choices are really important because then they take ownership of it. Okay, another question. Do you teach with GarageBand? If so, what do you do? And I currently do not teach anything on GarageBand. Honestly, I edit my podcasts in GarageBand, but that's about it. In the past, I've had students create a backing track during summer lessons. Here's my approach to technology is I think, okay, what kind of teacher? I am a piano teacher first. Technology is a really good tool, but I am not a tech tool teacher. I'm a piano teacher. So if GarageBand is going to help my students learn chords, then yes, you know, then I would do that. And then I would devise a plan on how I'm going to have that student use GarageBand. But just teaching someone how to use GarageBand would not be on my list of things to do. It would not be on my scope and sequence. So that's how I approach any tech tool, really. All right, so favorite supplemental music books for late, beginner, early, intermediate students. Ooh, such a good question from Miriam. And the reason why I say such a good question is because, you know, how do you pick and choose? Well, I feel like I stumbled across something this year that I've really liked. And it's by Chrissy Ricker. I've always been a huge fan of Chrissy Ricker's things. And I really loved her book called, let's see, it's called first perfect patterns. No, it's called perfect patterns. See, this is the thing. There's all these different perfect pattern pieces, but I promise you that it'll be in the email. But the one that I've discovered this year that has been just so successful with younger students is called First Perfect Patterns. And it's not a method book. The pieces really don't get harder and harder. They just have different patterns in them. And kids love them, and they're easy to learn. They're easy to grab onto. Yes. And then what's fun is like, oh, if you learn line 1, what other line have you just learned? Oh, line 3. So they're easy to grab onto within a week. Some of them have duet parts with them, but I've had one student in particular who reading is not his favorite thing to do, but he's a great student. And I feel like there's some other learning things, but man, has he really honed in on this book in particular. He really likes this book. So as a supplement to a lesson book, I don't even use a lesson book with him right now because I don't feel like he can progress from one page to the next. He gets overwhelmed pretty easily. This book is perfect for him. But all her pattern books, and again, I will have a link to that in the email, I highly recommend, because I love pattern pieces because they sound good, they're easy to teach. I usually teach them by rote. They explore the whole keyboard, all that kind of stuff. So those, I would say that's my favorite supplemental music book today, and that could be different tomorrow, but there you go. Okay, ways for piano teachers to diversify their income. That's another thing. So that I kind of already touched on that with selling online products, having adult soirees. Marie Lee is doing a parent training class, and she already has, she's a contributor at my store here, and she wrote the group teaching blueprint for group teaching, and she has already gotten some positive feedback from parents, and they're signing up because basically it's just a course on here. This is what your child is learning. So they're getting, some piano lessons themselves. So that might be an idea. Maybe just theory lessons. Maybe some people just have to really hone in on theory. You could get a church job. I don't know if there's that many available right now because churches are a little bit iffy since the whole pandemic, but I still have my church job. I love my church job. They pay me well. Not all church denominations pay very well. So it just depends. But if you can land a church gig, it can be a great thing in so many ways. It has honed my skills over and over again. So that's a possibility. A lot of school choirs, I get calls, they need accompanists. Especially during festival and solo ensemble time. So that could be a way to make money as well. And then, creating resources and selling them. And if you do, like I said, if you don't have a website, you want to sell something, please let me know. I'm open and interested in hearing what you have. All right. And then, let's see, how and what to practice as a teacher to get to the professional level. Oh, I like that question. That takes about 10,000 hours to become an expert. And I would say it takes about 10,000 more to even become proficient at intermediate to late intermediate repertoire. It takes a lifetime. It's not an easy thing to play the piano. But I also think that professional can mean a lot of different things. I think professional, what are the signs of your studio that tells you that you are a professional? Here are some things that I thought of just off the top of my head. Do you have a wait list? If you have a wait list, that means you're a professional. People are interested in consuming what you have, taking up your services. Let's see. Do students stick with you? Are you retaining your students? I think that is a sign that, yep, I think I know what I'm doing. I think I'm at that professional level. So I think take a look at the signs, like you can be a professional at any level. And I think if you treat your profession as a profession, then people will view you as a professional. It's always weird when the doctor's office says, okay, what's your profession? Like piano teacher. And I know what they're thinking. I wish there was a better name for what we do, because I think it's, like I'm the CEO of my business and I do this and this and this, but I don't bother. But I think you know what I mean. I think, we can quite often diss our own profession. And I think, the more we respect it, the more others will respect it as well. All right. How and what to teach advanced students. Oh my goodness. No, Okay, that is a huge question. I just don't think I can cover that all. First of all, you have to grow your advanced students. They're not going to come to you unless you get really lucky, but usually you have to grow them, which means you're probably going to start with beginners. So you have to have, okay, where do I see them in the future? And not all of them are going to meet exactly your expectations, or maybe they're going to branch off one way or the other. But I think if you want to have advanced students, you have to start preparing for them. You have to play the advanced literature yourself. And then I do feel like the better teachers are those who struggle to learn some of the harder repertoire, because they have to really work at it, and then they know what it takes to learn it. So that's just a few tips. I think we could definitely go further into that. Okay, and then how to teach scales, arpeggios, etc. Again, kind of a big topic. I'd love to dive into that. I don't feel like I'm an expert on technique, so I'm not going to pretend like I am, but I am going to give you one little hack that I think is amazing. And it's all about scales. Because scale fingerings, have you seen all those charts where they give you all the numbers and they have to remember it all? So I have 3 rules for students, and this is not from me. This is from Eric Jones, who is a teacher here in Colorado. He's a fantastic pianist and teacher. But basically, you give 3 rules. Every scale has a group of 3 and a group of 4. So a group of 3 and a group of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and no thumbs on a black key. So if you give them those 3 rules, so if I look at C major, I'll share my screen or my camera again here. C major has a C, D, E, and that's a group of 3. And so I'll show them at first what I mean by that group of 3 and group of 4. So C, D, E, and then just gallop the group of 3. Now, where's the group of 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now can you put those together? And what I love about this approach is that, notice I did not make a big deal about, oh, get your thumb under, and then they start turning their arm this way. They just go ahead and play. And then it just naturally happens that that thumb goes under. I don't make a big deal about that thumb. I want them to just get to the next place as much as they can. And then, of course, we talk about it more. But now, how does that apply to, let's say, an E flat major scale? They may not know right away. And I'll say, ooh, no thumb on a black key. Okay, I can put my thumb here. Ooh, there's a group of 4. And then here's my group of 3. So notice it doesn't start quite in that, but now they know to, start with group of 3. Here's my group of 4. Sorry, I need my A flat. And then, so I'll have them gallop their group of 4 and their group of 3. And if you notice, it's also C minor. Oh, sorry, it's not, but it's part of C minor. Oh yeah, it is. I'm looking at this backwards, so I'm not looking at my hand. But anyway, you get the idea. Is every scale can be reduced to no thumb on a black key, group of 3, group of 4. And if you try, you're like, no, D flat's not going to work. Yes, it does. Here's your group of 4. Here's your group of 3. You just don't always start at the beginning of the group. Now, if you have questions about that, I totally get it. It's a little bit much to absorb at first, but now my students don't have scale fingering charts. They can figure it out. And we take the time to figure it out what you're fingering. And then you have to do the same thing for the left hand. And then putting hands together is a whole nother thing. And I'm a big fan of scaling the chords where one hand is playing chords, one hand is playing the scales, because that's what we do in literature all the time. We rarely play hands in parallel motion. All right, let's see. Oh, practice tips. You know what? I have all kinds of practice tips, ideas. So I'm just going to leave the links to blogs about that. I'm a huge fan of practice tips, and I think we could just spend the whole time on practicing, but I'll just make sure that I link to those. I think practicing is key to progress, and practicing in a lesson is part of piano lessons. Students need to learn how to practice just as much as they need to learn how to play a C major scale. And I'm always surprised, maybe you have the same thing. I'm surprised that adult students do not know how to practice. Again, I've made the mistake of making assumptions. And so we cannot make assumptions. We have to help them practice as well. Okay. And then how to, oh my goodness, I'm not even getting to everything. Woo! Okay. How to continue teaching with seasons of life change. Okay, caregiver to aging parents. Okay, I would say be transparent. Charge for 8 lessons over 12 weeks. They get 8 lessons and you have the flexibility to cancel lessons when you need it. I have done flex schedules before where you are simply I'm going to teach, I've got 12 weeks. I'm going to teach 8 out of those 12 weeks. I just don't know what weeks I'm going to take off or what days I'm going to take off. But that gives you solid income coming in. That helps parents understand that, you know what, I may have emergency situations, but it's still, it gives them continuity as well. So I would recommend doing something like that. Online lessons. I want to go, I know that Kelly is here, so I want to talk to her about hers. Questions. She has some about streamlining her tech tools. I'm not going to go into detail, but I use my music staff for scheduling all of my lessons and all my tuition, all my invoicing. I can't say enough about having some kind of tool like my music staff. I think it's really important. There's also Duet, which used to be Music Teacher's Helper. And there's also Fonz. I know that teachers are happy with all 3 of those services. So I highly recommend, if you don't have that, definitely get something like that. And that has a calendar. It sends lesson reminders to students. And I use Google Drive all the time for all my documents. It has spreadsheets. I feel like Google Drive really keeps myself organized because you can create documents in there and spreadsheets and forms, and you can also organize documents as well. So I use for taxes, I use my music staff and Quicken. I do all my banking in Quicken, and then I can tag all the business expenses in certain categories, all that kind of stuff in Quicken. And then my tax guy is just up and down the hall from there, my husband, and we use TurboTax. So that's my quick answer for that. And then if you are ever wondering where to find the courses in my here at LeilaViss.com, I'll just share the screen here so that you can see. All right. And right here, you can see it says my account. That's where you're always going to log in right there. And you click on that. And then that's where you log in. So you have to remember your password, and that's where you access all of the courses. So if I go in right there, and then you'll see the courses that you have subscribed to. So that's how you access them. So I definitely make a point of bookmarking this. And what I mean by a bookmark is you just put a little star right there, and then you can name that bookmark, and then you can look at all your bookmarks. And so all of these up here are all little bookmarks that I made that I just access. So that's how I try and keep, because there's a lot of subscriptions, so you got, okay, where is that? So I totally get that you might lose that. And then let's see. I know we're running out of time. Is there somebody here that I didn't answer your question? Because I know I'm now breaking my own rule. I was going to stop at 11:55, but is there someone here that I didn't answer a particular question? Oh, I know, Kelly, I didn't answer this one, which you may be interested in. Now I'm forgetting who was saying number 2 on the, I have a plan of what I wanted to do this summer, but I'm not sure what to charge. So here is how I think about what I'm going to charge my students. Now, Kelly requires her students to take 8 lessons over the summer, 8 30-minute lessons. And so she charges $30 a piece for those lessons. So I'm sorry, I had to do this because I had to do the math. So 8 lessons at $30 a piece is $240. So that's what I would charge for your camp, because you want the same amount of income. But now what you're going to do is that camp could be maybe twice as long. So with private lessons, they're going to get 4 hours with you. With a group, they may get up to 8 hours with you. So they're getting twice the time with you for the same amount of money. So that's how I would calculate how to charge, because you want to keep that income going. But the beauty of group lessons is you spend less time teaching. Even though, your groups are going to be longer, you're going to have more people within that group. And then that's how you can trim down your hours for the summer. So Kelly, did that make sense? Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Because somebody asked me that before and like, how do I figure it out? But that's what I think, what do I want from each student for the summer? And so then I try and make it a deal for them. Hey, look, you get twice as much time with me for the same amount of money. And that can be a good selling point for that. Kelly, you were asking about high school freshman who's writing pieces. I would definitely look into Noteflight or MuseScore, sorry, for software for notating compositions. And then I will just give you a plug that the Composium is going to help you really learn how to use Noteflight. That's what I use with my students. And I use Noteflight versus MuseScore. I like MuseScore, but Noteflight we can access on the website. So your student can have an account. We can log in and see what she's been doing. There's also a community in Noteflight where you can share scores. I won't go into it right now, but if you're interested, that's all part of the Composium. And then I had tips on sight reading. Is there anybody who I didn't get to? Speak up, unmute yourself. Oh, yes, Wendy. Yes. Okay, Mindy, are you still here?
I'm here.
Yes. Okay, good. Okay, I know. Okay, let me quick answer your question about minor. Mindy is wondering about what chords to use in a minor scale if you're going to, I'm sorry, what chords you're going to use in a minor key. Because if we play a minor scale, we have natural minor. So Mindy, I say that is your scale that you are building things on. All the other scales are derivatives of that minor scale. So I'm going to share my screen once. She was wondering, well, what chords do you use if you decide to use a harmonic minor? Now, what she means by that is that in the Full Scoop on Chords, we talk about diatonic chords, the chords that live within a key. So right now, here is A minor, and here's all the chords that live in A minor. So 1 is minor, diminished, 3 is major, 4 is minor, 5 is minor, 6 is major, 7 is major, and 8 is minor. So that's how I would introduce chords in a minor key, first of all. But then what happens is when students play a cadence like that, I'll say to them, did you say that just didn't sound very nice? And they kind of want to do that. And then that's how I explain, well, a lot of times composers will write with the harmonic minor, and that is raising the 7th scale degree. So Wendy, what I would do is still use all the same chords, but the 5 chord would use that G sharp, and then the F, and everybody else would be the same. I wouldn't try and do, she was wondering, okay, so does that mean that the 3 chord, you would use an augmented chord? No, I wouldn't do that. And then again, with the melodic minor is really a hybrid of the major, if you think about it. So if we're in A minor, it's almost using the back end of the scale is almost like an A major scale. So you could use the major 4 chord and the major 5 chord. So Wendy, what I would consider thinking about is first think about the chords in just the A natural minor, and then let your improvisers realize that, oh, you know what, if you use the melodic minor, that introduces a major 4 chord. That could be a cool sound to add to a piece, but I wouldn't change all the other scale tones according to that derivative minor scale. Does that make sense, Mindy?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Can I ask one related question to that?
Yes.
It's simply like, so if we have minor chord progressions, they're not going to look like the standard major chord progressions?
No, and so what I would do, it's basically, if they're going to do the typical chord progression, it's just the 5 would be the 5 chord, or the 5/7. But I know, so you're right, I should do a minor thing because kids like to, well, we all like to play in minor. So what are the chord progressions that you would use in minor? So definitely something to add. Thank you for the suggestion and the nudge.
Yeah, don't should it.
No, okay,
but,
yeah.
if you're looking for
Oh, but I like to do those things. So, and you're right. I think minor is important because so many people like minor sounds. So
yeah, it's true.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Who else? Let's see. Oh yeah. Quick tea. Okay. So, okay. I liked this question, so I want to answer it. And thank you for hanging on with me. Okay. So she's wondering if she's playing, if your students know the heart and soul pattern. Well, actually, you know what? I do this more. I introduce inversions when students play Happy Birthday. Right now I'm using this during lessons as for my Perry's piano camp, but I have them harmonize. And they're jumping all around. So first of all, I will introduce them just playing every chord by root, in root position. And then I'll say, would you like to be more efficient in this left hand? Okay, we'll try this one. Let's see, that F chord. Let's move it up here, but now you're getting in the way. How about if we move the C over here? And then, ooh, can you slide to C? Yes, I can. And then, ooh, the next thing that I introduce, this is a Bradley Sowash thing, is everybody must stay in chord land with their chords. When you step out of chord land, things get muddy. Doesn't sound so nice. So instead of playing the B flat chord and keep it down, can you play the B flat chord right there? So that's how I introduce inversions. I never even use the word inversion. I call it sliding between chords. And I want students to see how much more efficient inversions can be. And that's how I talk them into that. So I don't say, this is an inversion and you will play it now. No, I want them to see, hey, man, if I use an inversion, this is much easier. Okay, did that help? All right. Okay. You have all been waiting patiently. I didn't get to talk about sight reading, but I did talk a little bit about sight reading. I think the biggest skill we need to teach our students is to omit things. Practice omitting things. We are all perfectionists and we want to get every note. When we sight read, we just can't get everything. I could go into detail about that. All right. Now I would love to do a drawing to see who wins a free year of the Full Scoop on Chords. So here is what I was planning because I didn't know how to do this in Zoom. So what I have here, I'm going to go back here and let's see, how many people do I have here? I don't even know how many I have, but what we're going to do over here is I've got this little random generator. Okay, so I'm going to generate a random letter. I'm sorry, a random letter generator is what I have here. Okay. And here we go. Ooh, it's a G. So who here's name starts with a G? Anybody start with a G? Their first name start with a G. No, I don't see it. No. Raise your hand if nope. Okay, let's try it again. Ooh, an H. Uh-oh, I saw a whole bunch of H's. There's a whole bunch of H's. Yes. Okay. So who's here whose first name starts with an H? Did I see a Heather? Oh, maybe I didn't.
Yes, Heather's here.
Heather is here. Heather, is there any other name that starts with an H? No one is chiming in. So Heather, I'm not seeing you on my list here. Heather, what's your last name?
Patero.
Patero. Yes, Heather. There you are. Yes, now I saw you. Yay, Heather. You just won a free year of the Full Scoop on Chords.
Woohoo!
Congratulations. All right. So Heather, I will send that your way. I'll give you a coupon code for that. All right. Now, you have permission to leave because now that the drawing's done, I am willing to stay for a little bit longer if there is something that is pressing that I didn't answer. So congratulations, Heather. Thank you all for taking time to be with me. This is really kind of cool. I didn't know who would show up, but I thought if I build it, they will come maybe. And I do appreciate you and putting up with my transparency. I don't have all the answers. I'm curious to see what answers you gave. Measuring progress. Oh, yes, measuring progress. Karen. Yes, Karen, are you still here? I don't think she is. If you're still, if you are willing to hang around, I will answer this question and then it will be.
I actually am still here, Leila. Sorry, I couldn't unmute.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Okay, Karen, you were wondering, how do I check for progress? So thank you for sticking around. I think that is a good question. And now I got to find my answers. I think what we need to decide is what is progress. And maybe, Karen, what would do you well is to, again, what's your end plan? What's the end game? So what do you want by the end of this quarter? I'm hoping that. Now, and I feel like when we set too many goals, we get disappointed because guess what? Life happens and piano lessons are probably not a priority for all our students. But then maybe that's a chance for them to, sit and reflect with you. What have you learned this year? Oh, you learned what quarter notes are. You learned what a C chord is, and making a list can help them and perhaps you feel better. So I would suggest doing something like that. Maybe doing a 30-piece challenge, or maybe it's not even a 30-piece challenge, a 20-piece challenge. Another idea is do a 6-week sprint. I have listened to people who are great organizers, and 6 weeks is kind of the sweet spot where if you do a whole year, it's way too long, like, a New Year's resolution. But if you do 6 weeks, okay, we are going to go from X, Y to Z in 6 weeks. That could help you feel like, hey, we made progress. And maybe that's, okay, we're going to learn a new song from beginning to end, and it's going to be memorized. And so that could be a way. Passing a theory test. I have my students take theory tests every year. Maybe they don't even fill out the whole thing, but I just want to know, what do they know? What do they not know? Oh, okay, we got to work more on that. But usually every year they know more. And these are just standardized theory tests from National Federation of Music Clubs, or maybe your local association has a theory test that might be good. Or, maybe you have theory tests in the back of a theory book. I don't usually use a lot of theory books because I think you can lose students when you use theory books, or they just, they sit empty. And then yes, set specific goals. I think perhaps that's one of the most important things, is be specific. Okay, by the end of 2 weeks, you are going to learn how to play this piece with 0 errors, or with all the dynamics, or as a duet with me, something like that. I think if you set smaller goals for them at first and then make them larger and larger, perhaps that will help you feel like, yes, we are making progress, and help them at the same time. And then define what success is versus progress. Maybe success is more important to you than progress at the beginning. Man, they actually played that piece. Yay, versus, oh man, we didn't get all the way through page whatever. I would say that you can celebrate both things. So Karen, does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And there are some blog posts and stuff that I will add into my email following this that are dedicated to that as well, Karen.
Great, thanks.
Yes. I see Jennifer has her hand up. Jennifer, are you still here?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions I put in the chat, but maybe they
yeah.
were hard to see. First of all, when you were talking about doing scales with chords in the left hand, are you using like 1, 4, and 5 chords, or how are you scaling with chords?
Scaling the chords. Okay, that is a Bradley Sowash thing. And so I'll play it for you once so you can hear it. So basically, you're just going up and down the scale while your left hand changes chords.
So
have a freebie on that
changing between what chords? The sound cuts out when you're playing on the piano.
Oh, of course, because okay. Now my music sounds from musician. Okay. Is that any better or no?
Yeah, that was better. So which chords are you moving between?
So what I'm using in my left hand is just, the normal cadence chords, the typical, I shouldn't say normal, but usually you're doing the 1, the 4, the 1, and then the 5, or the 5, 7. So I call that a typical cadence. Something like that.
Right.
And then I run the scales over those.
Okay, that's what I wondered. And then do you have like a certain method series that you use as kind of your base books that you like, and then you ask people to buy just supplementary stuff, or do you kind of just mix and match everything?
That would be the last one, the mix and match things. I tend to, I don't know, there is like a method book of the day for me sometimes, but I do like Piano Safari. I'm using it more successfully the second time around with 2 young guys who it's just working better for me. I had a hard time. I started at online lessons and it wasn't my favorite for a couple of reasons, but it also depended on how old the child was. And then Piano Pronto is one of my go-tos because it has all familiar tunes in it. So and then the left hand just kind of sits there. The thing about piano pronto that I don't like is that kids think that their thumb is glued to middle C and that life is based around middle C, and then it's hard for them to play other pieces. So I definitely supplement. I feel like method books are their reader books. They practice reading, and then I supplement with a lot of other things, especially from Chrissy Ricker, Kevin Olson, Dennis Alexander, Melody Bober. I try and use, as much music as I can that really appeals to kids. And then the method book is just practicing their reading skills. Does that help?
Oh yeah, and those are all really good ones. I love all those.
Okay.
So how often are you asking them to buy a supplementary book? Because I want to help my students build a library of music, but you get, 2 or 3 or 4 kids from the same family and you're asking them all to buy another book every month. How do you balance that?
Yes, I have a one-time fee. Everyone in the summer, everyone registers for the next year, and that registration is, I think I'm up to $150. And that registration covers all the books, all the technology, any recital things that I may do if I rent a piano or whatever. So I buy all the books, I buy all the music, I do all the buying. So, and for a family of 3, this is their discount. Then they just pay that one fee.
Okay.
And so that helps, so I don't know if that's the magic number. I just kind of dream that up, but I do feel like that provides a lot of, if I have technology, I have lots of subscriptions. I use Sproutbeat, which is I really like that tool, but those are expenses that I have. And so charging my parents for that or my families for that music up front like that gives me the freedom. And then what I do is, I'll dig through their bag and say, hey, you got this book in here. Do you like this book? Do you want to keep it? And sometimes they say, yes, I want it. And sometimes if it's an old method book, like, no, and then I'll repurpose it. I use it over. So I kind of have this circulating library, but if there's ever something that a student wants to keep for sure, I definitely have them keep it.
Okay. So how many books would you say you're handing out to them every year, like within a year's time?
That's a good question, because it's not even a book anymore. It's a studio license of something, or someone wants to play a video game piece. So then I quick buy it off Music Notes. So that's a really hard thing to do. And those are one of the things that I'm not very good at, is keeping track of little details of what I do. So I have to confess that I'm not very good at doing that. But maybe that would be something for you to start keeping track of. And that could give you your rounded up number. I would definitely round up. Just because that it's going to be expenses. There's going to be, like I have Amazon Prime, so I order from Amazon. There's expenses to ordering music, but now I know that I have the music when I want it instead of waiting for my students to get it.
Exactly. No, that's a great idea. Sorry, one last quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I purchased your Play in a Band program when you were first launching that, and I was kind of under the impression that you were going to keep adding to that. Are you planning on still adding to that? Or, because I guess I was kind of surprised when the whole Scoop on Chords thing came out separately, because I kind of felt like that was all similar content. But
okay. How to Play Piano is probably more specific. It's very chord driven as far as chord charts are concerned. It's not teaching the chords. I am going to add the camp that I did into the How to Play Piano and Band course. So that will be there. And I always take suggestions. So is there something missing? I felt like that was a pretty complete course in itself as far as how to play piano and band, but I'd be interested in knowing what's missing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go back and review it. I did kind of have a hard time following some parts of it, so I could go back and review it and maybe.
And can you tell me what was hard to follow?
Some things. I think it was that when we get to some of the more complicated chord charts, if we're not really familiar with those chords, we didn't see exactly what you were doing.
Okay.
So it was kind of hard to follow exactly what you were doing, because we couldn't see the hands and couldn't see the patterns. And
right. Well, and that's what and I can put more of those in the courses, but I have like, contact me, so feel free.
Right.
Like, okay, I don't understand this. And it's really easy for me to make a video. I've got something called Zoom, so I can not Zoom, Loom. So I can easily make videos that slow things down. And that's, because there's not a human there, I don't know what you're struggling with. So I would love to hear, oh, can you
Okay.
please do XYZ?
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for coming. All right. Anybody else? Man, I got some hardcore people sticking with me here. Is there anything else that I did not answer? Feel free to speak up if I'm missing something. Okay, I see thank yous. You probably all have to go. Some of you are still here. Those present, any questions that I didn't cover that you'd like me to answer? No. All right. You're just hanging out with me. Okay, very good. I think that, someone asked about online lessons. They go by so quickly. How do you fit everything in without feeling stressed? So here are some things that I will share. And again, hopefully this could be helpful. First of all, I like to play and practice. Those are the two things that I do at online lessons. If we get around to other things, like even a fun game, maybe that's okay, but I want them to play for me as much as possible and then practice with me and learn those practice skills. So I don't fit everything in. And I notice that I trim down what my students actually accomplish within a week just because of the amount of time. It's just a time crunch. I have to admit. And then I'd be clever with a quick game or an unexpected activity here or there. Can you play this back to me? Those kind of things. Introducing a piece. It will be a lot of playing by ear and rote teaching. And then if I do, I have students complete off-bench assignments and I deliver those through Tonara. And like I said, I use Sproutbeat, I use Tenuto. Those are all really nice apps that are easily shared with students at home that they can complete at home. And then Kay Lowry has a store full of different things using Google Slides that kids can do at home as well. So one thing to think about, I like this quote, efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. So I think that's the key is what do you want to fit in? What is your highest priority? And I want students to play for me because if they're playing with me in a lesson or, and I can give them feedback, that's going to give them the impetus to go and practice between lessons. So I think that covers it. So thank you all. Unless I'm missing some questions, I greatly appreciate you all. Thanks for sticking with me and have a great rest of your day. Happy teaching. Bye.